Welcome to Relationship Talk, the podcast where we have real conversations about love, well-being, dating, and relationships. In today's episode, I had an unmasking conversation with Darshana Avila, who is a trauma-informed somatic educator, practitioner, and international speaker who helps people reconnect with the most essential aspects of themselves, their truth, their desires, and their capacity for profound pleasure and power. Known for her grounded, candid, and relational approach, she bridges the worlds of embodiment, emotional intelligence, and personal agency with depth and accessibility. Darshana's work has been featured on Netflix's Sex, Love, and Goop, The Guardian, The New Yorker, and numerous leading podcasts. You can find out more about her signature work in the show notes. During this conversation, Darshana shares why eroticism is something much deeper than what society typically portrays, and she debunks the misunderstandings and stigma around it through the principle of her erotic wholeness. She dives into the interesting contrast between society commodifying sex whilst also shaming authentic erotic expression, and she helps us to lean into the joy of exploration. She also explains how people-pleasing and perfectionism often shows up in our relationships, which can lead to women suppressing their needs to meet expectations rather than expressing them. Her guidance on the power of accurate vocabulary teaches us how to represent ourselves fully, alongside a surprising insight into why intimacy can feel different when we're not directly face to face, and so much more. You are about to get the whole RLT, aka Relationship Talk, so you're going to want to watch the entire episode. I hope you will find this conversation as freeing as I did. And remember to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell. I'm Teresha Young, your international wellness and relationship coach. Enjoy, take notes, and get ready to apply all key messages you take away today. Hello, Darshana. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful, Teresha. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited and thank you. Thank you for being here on the show today because I'm so excited to talk about the topic that we're going to talk about, which is all about eroticism. And it's a word, it's a mouthful for me. So if I mispronounce it several times, it's a bit of a mouthful for me, but we're going to delve right into all of the juiciness around it. But before we crack into the details of the show, I would love for you to share with us some more about what led you to becoming a trauma-informed somatic educator, practitioner, and international speaker.
Thank you for that. Yeah, this journey really was born out of my own personal exploration. So once upon a time, young me was married in her early 20s, had a corporate career. Life looked really good on the outside. I was moving in the direction of all of the things that modern Western culture teaches us to aspire to and define our success by. And yet I was not happy. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I was really like miserable in many ways. And I began a spiritual journey first and foremost, and yoga was a really big part of that for me. And that started to take me in a direction that my former husband was very disinterested in, super supportive of me, not for him. And we came to a point of reckoning with the reality that I was not going to be satisfied in a partnership where I wasn't met spiritually, never mind all the other ways. And he was not interested in the things that were emerging for me. So we divorced. And that found me at 28. So I was quite young. 28, entering into the dating world again after having been in a monogamous relationship for most of my 20s. And all of a sudden, I was finding myself realizing there is a lot that I did not know. I did not know about myself intimately, sexually, spiritually. So that became the really big focus of my life in my that tail end of my 20s and into my 30s. And the path kept moving me in the direction of spirituality and sexuality being intertwined with one another as opposed to siloed, which is how many of us are taught to view it. You know, we have ideas of perhaps religious conservatism, a savior self till marriage type of thing. But this was not that. This is more about how sex can be a deeply sacred, reverential, beautiful experience, how intimacy can be a way where we can expand and even alter our consciousness and be in communion with something greater than ourselves. And I'm doing the abbreviated version of this, but that personal journey at a certain point became so much the center of my passion and my focus that I looked around at my life, my career, my everything as like, yeah, this has got to go. And I did a big leap off the proverbial cliff's edge, let go of a lot of those trappings of so-called success, and did not intend to be a coach in the sexuality field. That was
Yes.
not the initial plan. And yet life really, I could say, rolled out the red carpet for me in many ways where I was shown very clearly that this path was resonant for me and that I had something to offer here. And that has become the focus of my life. And I've been in private practice for 11 years now. So it's been quite a journey.
Wow. You're a spiritual person, and that number 11, such a powerful number when it comes to spirituality as well. 11 years. Thank you for sharing that story because I think so many people will resonate with it, particularly being in the success world, what success looks like to everybody else, but not truly feeling and embodying
Yeah.
that expression. And when you talk about the intertwining of sexuality and also spirituality, it makes me think of the term that you use, erotic wholeness, because
Exactly.
there is so much in this world, because you speak about eroticism as something deeper than what society typically portrays. And I know when we was having a conversation before, many people actually link erotic solely with pornography. For example, they hear the
Mhm.
word eroticism, they hear erotic, and they think, oh, that's porn. So how do you define the word erotic? And
Yeah.
secondly, what do you think most people misunderstand about it and any stigmas around it?
I love this question. And really, I get to answer both of them in one. My definition of eroticism, which I want to be clear, is not my original idea. So I'm borrowing primarily very heavily, or not even borrowing, standing on the shoulders of luminaries of the Black intersectional feminist movement, in particular, Audre Lorde. And if you're not familiar with her and her amazing essay, Uses of the Erotic, it's worth a read or worth a listen. There's a YouTube video out there of her like reading this essay. It's not all that long. And so, in that vein, eroticism is more of an umbrella term, if you will, that speaks to our vitality, our life force energy, our creativity. So, it's not wrong to equate eroticism with sexuality. It's also not the whole picture. We channel our life force, we channel our vitality into our sex, but it's also present in any other creative expression, whether that's art, whether that's how you tend relationships, whether that's your activism, how you show up in any of the roles you play professionally in community, among your dearest family, friends, beloveds. We are animate beings, right? We have all of this beautiful aliveness, this energy pulsing through us. And so eroticism, when we take it wider and broader to understand it as life force energy, it's present in everything we're doing.
Mm.
So erotic wholeness, my body of work, originally I started out as a sex and intimacy coach. That's what I called myself. It's what made the most sense. And again, it's not inaccurate. I still support my clients very, very heavily in the realm of their intimate lives and exploring their sexuality. The thing is, it never stays there. It always ends up widening out into other aspects of life. It simply can't help but do that.
Yes.
So that's where the term erotic wholeness began to emerge. Again, also through the lens of my personal experiences, because I'm in a very beautiful, unique, fortunate or not, it's a subjective term, position where what I explore for myself as an individual absolutely shows up in my work. And I've found so much liberation in this wider understanding of eros and eroticism. And it really has taken a lot of the pressure off of sexuality for me personally. And I see this for my clients as well. Because let's be real, most of us have put a lot of pressure on our sex and have a lot of hangups around it. And that does us no favors.
Yeah.
So this is a way of really reclaiming this vital life force energy in its wider definition, and then being more at choice with what does this mean for us sexually? What is the emphasis or the impact, if you will, that this is going to have on my intimate relating? And there's a lot more range and a lot more freedom and permission when we're coming from this wider lens.
Yeah. So, how does one connect or reclaim that life force energy? What does that look like in practice?
Mhm. For a lot of us, it has to do with presence and embodiment, which are two terms that I'm sure folks listening, if they're into this podcast, they may not be totally, unfamiliar with those terms, but let's just define them simply. Presence, your ability to really be right here, right now, aware of your present moment experience, which goes hand in hand with embodiment. We all are in a body. Okay, so you don't have to do anything to earn that. What many of us are not, however, is present in our body. So our experience of embodiment might be lacking because we're pretty disassociated, we're disconnected. Many of us are living from the neck up, where we're very focused on the mental and intellectual facets of our experience, less so on emotions and sensations and the wisdom of our body. So when we learn how to cultivate more of that, by default, we're going to be paying more attention to our senses and
Mm,
really experiencing the world in a sensuous way. So
yes.
I say the word sensuous here, and somebody listening might hear that, and immediately that's just one step away from sex.
Yes,
You're
yes.
not wrong, but it's also not objectively right. Like,
Mm,
we are sensuous creatures.
yes.
Our sight, sound, taste, smell, touch is available to us always. So when we start to train ourselves to pay more attention to our bodies, we're going to naturally then extend out into more of this sensuous, sensual relating with life. And take that one in, right? The idea that we are relating with life, not just with other people, but with everything and everyone seen and unseen around us. And look, if that lands as really woo-woo for you, okay, like, okay, try it on anyway.
And
Like,
yeah,
because this is what it means to be human.
absolutely. You will
And
never know.
so you asked about, yeah, and that is the starting point. It's
Mm,
how we become more present in and with our bodies, how we cultivate a greater awareness of our senses. We are going to therefore notice more sensitivity.
yes.
Preferences, boundaries, desires are born of our sensitivity.
Yes.
So this becomes a bit of a domino effect that has, a long path that it can trickle down. But that's the starting point.
Thank you. Really starting to connect with the sensuality, as you said, the senses, the emotions, the feeling, as I would describe it, the feminine energy, as opposed to the masculine energy that many of
Yeah.
us can be living in. So I think, people who are stepping into their empowerment and into embodiment, they can go through this experience. They may also enjoy the pleasure of the experience. But I'm also thinking that there could be some discomfort that comes alongside the process, alongside the healing, alongside the rediscovering our desires and what that shows up. So, how can we hold both the pleasure and the pain in a really healthy, integrated, intertwined way?
Yeah, I love that question and that observation because yes, simply put, yes, you open up to more of anything, you're going to be opening yourself up to more of everything. So while we may be seeking to expand our capacity for pleasure, to bring more novelty or range into our partnered intimacy or whatever the thing that sets you on this path, chances are good, to your point, Teresha, that you will find discomfort, you will find pain, and pain can be used here again, another umbrella term. It might be grief. It might be longing. So those are aspects of our love because we grieve for what we love. We long for things that matter to us ostensibly. So we think about love often as a positive, and we think about pain as a negative. But those are really subjective labels or categories that we're slapping on these things when the reality is emotion, sensation is sensation. If we take away the stories that we're telling about it, the meaning that we're making of it, and connect with things in their more pure form, it's energy, it's aliveness. So this brings us kind of back around. You're right that if you do go down this path, I can guarantee you're going to feel more. That I don't guarantee a whole lot. I will guarantee you that you're going to feel more.
Yeah.
And if to be present with grief and longing or sorrow or whatever it is, discomfort, maybe it's rage, maybe memories surface from things that happened once upon a time that were pretty much buried under, or perhaps you realize, and this is not an uncommon thing with a lot of my clients, where many of the people who I'm supporting are coming to me in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And so that means they've lived a fair amount of life already.
Yeah.
And when they find out that they have this capacity for pleasure that they did not know about previously, there can be a complicated range of emotions about the years that they spent numbed out or
Yeah.
settling,
Yeah.
going along to get along, the kind of like marital duties. Don't even get me started on the language that we put to these things. But
Agree.
it's so yes, it goes hand in hand. But my hope then is that if someone's listening to this, that's not a deterrent because it doesn't mean you're going to get stuck in the pain and the misery. What it actually means is you get to give it the room, the attention, the space that it needs to be felt, to be processed, and then you move on. You integrate it and you move forward. And that's the pathway to more of the wholeness because
Mhm.
we're no longer trying to avoid certain pieces of ourselves and our lived experience. We're actually saying, okay, here's my grief. I'm going to feel this and I'm going to let it be a part of my experience. And I'm going to stay as available as ever, probably more so to my joy, to
Yeah.
the goodness and the sweetness of life.
Yes. And it's so important to name it, to label it, whatever you are
Yeah.
experiencing. Because no, when I'm supporting my clients too, I really encourage them to accurately label the emotion because we can have a tendency to use happy, sad, angry as three core emotions or wounds we might be feeling. But there is a wheel of emotions out there. And when we start to label it accurately, then we can start to identify patterns and to go further to say, what in actual fact, when else have I felt the
Mhm.
frustration? So maybe it's not just sexual, for example. Maybe it's linked more to the emotional frustration. And then
You're
you
right.
get to go deep, you get to go into the layers. I love unpacking. I really do.
Totally. And your point about vocabulary
Yes.
actually is really relevant in a lot of different contexts. Most of us have pretty dismal vocabularies to speak about what we need and want in terms of physical intimacy, to represent our emotional experience, to speak about our needs and desires in any context with confidence. So vocabulary and communication skills are essential to the kind of work we're speaking of here, the kind of growth and healing we're speaking of here, because we do a lot of disservice to ourselves and those we're in relationship with when we're like, yeah, fine, good, okay, blah, 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 that kind of bland, generic. And again, I don't want anyone to feel vilified or shamed if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, that's me. Most of us are doing that
Oh, yes.
until we are made aware that there's a limitation then to our vocabulary, to how we're expressing ourselves, representing ourselves, and that can be expanded upon. So I literally have worksheets, like just printouts of
Yeah.
emotion words and sensation words and my clients, like when they get their hands on it, they're usually like, oh my, what, huh, huh? And I'll
Yes.
invite them to just peruse a list and be like, what do you identify with right now? And
Yes.
all of a sudden they're describing, an effervescent, shimmering energy in their body, or they're speaking about, my heart is feeling really heavy and contracted right now. And that type of expression really lets us deepen the intimacy of the experience, which is so important.
Oh gosh, yes, because it allows us to then tap into our creativity. Because then once we start to label it and we start to feel into it, and then we almost release it, it's like a liberation. Because if
Mhm,
we
very
start
much
to
so.
bracket everything under one category, it can feel overwhelming and very heavy. I'm always angry. Perhaps you're not always angry. I'm always tense. Well, what else are you feeling? Are you feeling contracted? Are you feeling expanded? Vocab is so, so important, as you said there, to be able to communicate our needs and our desires and our wants, our
Yeah.
preferences in a way that the other person can also understand and maybe even relate to. It's
Yeah.
that shared experience,
Yes.
isn't it?
So important because vulnerability relies upon our shared experience, and it is also the building block to genuine intimacy. So when we are only speaking at the surface of our experience, we are not allowing ourselves to be known, and we are not giving other people around us a sense of permission, a sense of openness. They probably think, well, if all Darshan is doing is like super, super surface level, then I'm not going to bring my depth to her. And so it becomes a way where when we choose to cultivate these capacities and we choose to shift our communication and what have you, we are modeling something for the people that we're in relationship with. And we get to invite them into that deeper intimacy that becomes available, that shared vulnerability, that more expansive understanding of here's my experience right now. Tell me about yours. Where do we overlap? Again, shared experience makes for vulnerability. And it really is an integral part of how we do relationship, whether we're talking about a romantic or a platonic relationship. This
Yeah.
applies. So,
So that shared intimacy and that connection is really, really important. And you spoke about, some of the terms out there earlier, and you said, "Don't get me started on the terms." Well, I think we need to get started. I
let's do it. Okay.
reason why is that I believe that when we are attached to certain terms, certain labels, it does actually stifle our communication. It makes us maybe
Mhm.
identify as something that we're not, and our true selves, our truth, as you say, doesn't actually come out and express itself. So one of those things, or two of those things, how I believe it can show up as is people pleasing and also perfectionism.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then we can then be bracketed under the terms nice. You're considerate, considerate, nice, or good girlfriend, good wife. Some of these labels that get put out there. So from your perspective, because you said don't get me started on it. So from your perspective, what's really driving like these patterns and and these cultural and gender expectations?
Yeah. Well, it is cultural. So that's the thing to understand when we speak about people pleasing, when we speak about perfectionism, these are reinforced by our culture. So it's not this one becomes a delicate one. I'm a born perfectionist, right? Like I came out of the womb like that. My brother didn't. We came out of the same womb, right?
Yeah.
So love him. Um, and we're two different people, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to preface it by saying we are predisposed to certain adaptive strategies, and perfectionism is that. I'm using the term adaptive strategy. You could use the term protective strategy, survival strategy. These are things that we might have a certain predisposition for that very early on get rewarded and reinforced. And so we keep enacting them. Perfectionism and people pleasing are really high on that list, particularly for those of us who happen to be born female and grow up as girls, acculturated and treated accordingly, go on to become women. It's not exclusively gendered, but there's a real bias here. Um, People pleasing is the, well, honey, go ahead and do this for me. Go kiss your grandma. Make sure your room is tidy, and all the things that we learn to do from the time we're super young because other people are pleased by our action. So we get the pats on the back, we get the pinched cheeks, we get the, oh, you're such a good girl. And that becomes a motivating force. It feeds into perfectionism as well, which is to say, then we have these standards that start to build up over time of the right way to be. And that is everywhere from the bedroom to the boardroom, right? So we're moving through our lives with a set of standards that, quite frankly, it's just unattainable for most of us and very unrealistic. And yet we believe that if we do not meet this standard, forget it, the worst possible thing will happen. And I mean that. Some part of ourselves, deep in our psyche, really does believe that not nailing your presentation is a life or death experience, even though objectively speaking, it isn't.
Yes.
All right. So we're acting as if there is a level of threat that we are responding to all the time that isn't actually there. So we people please, we do whatever we think we got to do, like a hamster on a wheel to take care of the folks around us. We strive to meet these unrealistic standards. When it comes to sex and intimacy, I'm just going to make it very simple. What it means then is that your authentic self, are not in the room. You're not. So who you really are in your deep soul level, your essence, what your body really yearns for is seldom ever included. You don't even know that part of yourself, chances are, because so much of your life has been lived as a performance. Again, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh goodness, that is me, I'm glad you hear something you resonate with. And the last thing I want you to do is now make this a way to like beat yourself over the head. A lot of us are struggling with these things, and that's where it becomes cultural. Cultural because it is, again, reinforced. We get a lot of positive feedback. We get a lot of the cash and prizes, as it were. But like myself, as an example, back in my 20s, handsome husband, good career, bought a home, it all looked great. I was not happy because I was not living my authentic truth. I was not in my body. I was at the gym. I was on the yoga mat. I was doing all these things. I was having sex all the time. My ex-husband and I had an active sex life. Was I really fully expressing my truth? No. Did I have any clue what that truth was at that point in time? No. So it really comes down to, if we look at perfectionism and people pleasing at one end of the spectrum, and on the other end of the spectrum is our authentic self, our true desires, our fullest expression. We want to be able to move in the direction of that. And that does not mean that you're, flagrantly, like egregiously, like out of control. It means you're simply finding space to be your true self when and where you can comfortably and safely do so. That too is another factor. As much as I'm an advocate and a stand for full authentic expression, we have to place it in context. And only the people who really have earned our trust and can hold us with due care and can co-create with us an experience of emotional safety deserve that from us. So there's also a layer of discernment that we get to practice here. And I think it's important to mention that because sometimes people, when they're so accustomed to the performance, the idea of being authentic can feel really uncomfortable, even dangerous. So I want to make this clear mention of the discernment that we get to all have here about who and how and to what extent we're showing these aspects of ourselves.
Yeah. Such a wonderful share there, because when you were talking and you were speaking about performance and you're speaking about life or death, if I don't nail that presentation, it literally could be a life and death situation. And then I start to think about the nervous system, for example, because when we're in that situation, surely we're going to have the fight, flight, freeze, fawn situation. Now, how does one then start to regulate that nervous system? Because if we're bringing ourselves back into our body, surely the regulation of our nervous system is going to be super important as well.
It's ground zero, absolutely. So in the work that I do, it's a four-phase journey, this journey to erotic wholeness. And the first phase is all about nervous system tending and regulation. How do we actually train our nervous systems to be in an accurate relationship with what's going on in the present moment instead of that threat response, the
Yes.
fight, flight, freeze, fawn that you just named, coming on in situations where it just really doesn't apply. So I want to be clear that threat response too has a place. You know, we evolved coexisting with apex predators around the corner. And so, yeah, you need to be able to run away if the tiger is coming at you.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that is smart,
Yeah.
you know, and even things like fawning, which tends to get a bit of a like an especially bad rap because it's like, oh, well, you're playing along, you're faking it. Well, sometimes that's a really wise strategy. And there's a more benevolent spin on what fawn is that is very specific to females, and that is tend and befriend, which is to say that we actually seek to cultivate common ground and relationship instead of the divisiveness. So that's a form of fawning, perhaps, but it might actually lead to something positive. So I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a tangent, but
Oh, no, I love that. Yes.
you are correct that it comes down to having a well-regulated nervous system, which I want to be clear does not mean you're Zen 24/7, 365. It doesn't mean that nothing ruffles your feathers.
Yeah.
No. Regulated means you can activate when needed, wanted, appropriate, and you can decelerate and settle when needed, wanted, appropriate. So, well regulated means you've got that range. You're not stuck in the high activation, you're not stuck in the low. High activation would look like fight all the time or
Yeah.
running away all the time. The low activation would look like freeze, dissociation, really just kind of almost like being like a ghost in your own lived experience. We want to be able to move comfortably between the highs and the lows and then find our middle ground with ease. That is the mark of a well-regulated nervous system, and that has everything to do with how you're going to experience your intimate life, how you're going to show up in a sexual context, but really again, every other aspect of life as well.
Brilliant. Because when I was having these, I let my audience know, I let my community know that I was going to have a conversation with you. And I said, does anybody have any questions? And actually, what you shared there
Oh,
probably, yeah, I did. Yeah, I reached out. And what you shared there could actually
love
be
it.
in response to one of the questions that I'm going to read out for you. So this person says that
Great.
I've been through a difficult relationship. And since then, I found it hard to relax into intimacy. How can I start feeling more comfortable in my body again and enjoy sex without of the tension coming up? So obviously we just spoke about the
Mhm.
nervous system there. Is there anything else that this person could do?
Yeah. So it's I think it's a two-prong approach. Tending to your own nervous system is always going to be a supportive thing. And that could be working with a somatic coach or therapist. It could be taking classes, whatever your personal practices are around that. There are so many different ways, depending upon what you have access to and what feels aligned. When it comes to being with another person, I want to just for a moment, I'll give a very simplistic example of if you are face to face with someone, eyes on each other, front body to front body, and you're moving toward one another. This is the most vulnerable dynamic any two mammals can be in together. Let's just like take it broad. Mammals, animals, front body to front body. Why? Because this is where all the sensitive bits are. This is where all our viscera is, our eyes, our mouths, these orifices. Like it's actually like a really activating experience to come face to face, especially in an intimate context.
Yes.
So, a very practical thing to explore with is instead of coming toward front body to front body, if you are going to be spending some time with someone, I want you to think about literally and more metaphorically what side by side could look like. where you actually bridge connection in a slower, more peripheral way. So you might spend some time sitting next to each other on the couch holding hands. You might trade some massages that are more along the edges of your body because we are tend to generally be less sensitive, less activated if the contact is shoulders, arms, even your thighs, or places where there's bigger muscles, bigger bones. Like, let those be the initial touch points. Slow everything you're doing down by 50%. That's usually a good rule. And breathe. It's not complicated, but you'd be amazed at how many of us are holding our breath or
Yeah.
shallow breathing. So intimacy could look like, assuming that there's also the emotional safety, telling your partner like, hey, like I'm really excited to be here with you, and it feels a little vulnerable to me too. I would love to really slow things down so that I can be fully present with you. Are you open to matching my pace?
Yeah.
Now listen, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get a yes, because most of us want to be a good lover to our person, a good partner to our person. Most of us are motivated. We may not have, back to what we were talking about in the early part of this conversation, we may not have the vocabulary, we may not have the communication skills, but most of us actually do have the desire to do right by whoever we're with. So
Yes.
if you can be the one to offer just a little bit of guidance to your person in this context, whether it's a first date, an established lover, a long-term partner, and say like, I want to play around with what would it be like to just kiss and cuddle, keep clothes on, or maybe it's back to like our high school days, only do like first base, second base. Like, that's another thing that could be a lot of fun to play with too, is
Yeah.
that we have this experience, most of us as adults, where once sex escalates to include genital focus and particularly intercourse, the implicit idea is that we must always then only be doing this. And so we stop giving ourselves the beauty, the joy, the delight of like a hot and steamy makeout where you've put a boundary in place. And instead of that feeling like a limitation, it actually becomes kind of an aphrodisiac where it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this is so hot. The sexual tension, because yeah, I really, really want to take my pants off. Yeah, I want to get into your pants, but okay, we're going to behave ourselves, and we're only making out, or we're only taking tops off tonight.
Yeah.
So, to try to put a little bit of a summation on that, I started with that example of like side to side as opposed to front, which is to say moving toward each other in a gentler orientation, spending time building physical contact more around the edges of your body, connecting with your words, talking about pace, and then getting creative. Like, not every intimate encounter has to be an escalator to intercourse.
Mm.
The sex escalator is doing none of us any favors. We get way more creativity, way more enjoyment, way more satisfaction when our sex actually gets to be creative. So
Whoa.
instead of just defaulting to, oh, there's going to be a penis and a vagina tonight,
Yes.
what else could you do together that would be fun?
Oh
So,
gosh. What I loved all of those tips that you have shared there, because one thing I do share with my clients typically is when you are going to maybe have a difficult conversation, to go on a walk. 'Cause when you are side by side rather than confrontational, so to speak, you can really get to the depth. And when you think about it, some of the best conversations we have with our partner is when we are in the car side by side, and you really can go into a lot of detail. You have a quality relationship, but I've never really linked that to the whole sexual experience as well. So I absolutely love that share in terms of maybe doing things side by side, not so full on, just to ease yourself into the depth of intimacy. What a wonderful share that you've done here. Also, another question came up, and I think it's going to lead quite nicely into what you were ending with there. It's about the exploration. So this person says, I'd really love to explore things like toys, lingerie, or just trying something new sexually. But I feel embarrassed bringing it up with my partner. I even feel awkward going into a shop and looking at these things. How can I get more comfortable talking about this and exploring it without feeling ashamed? That's the question.
Oh, I love this. I love this because, yeah, it's a really normal thing in our cultural context that many of us feel awkward
Yeah.
or embarrassed or shame around what fundamentally is so natural, so natural, so human that we, listen, for as long as we've been on this planet, we have been exploring creatively around our sex. There's a museum of sex in New York City, if anyone happens to ever be traveling there. And the initial exhibit takes you basically like you're in a time capsule and it showcases sex toys through the ages. And I do
Oh,
mean through the ages.
oh,
We have been using implements and tools and toys to enhance our pleasure since time immemorial. The overlay of more conservative, like puritanical Victorian age, like suppression of this
yes.
is not natural. That's what's not natural. Okay, so I hope that the person who asked that question is hearing me right now when I invite you to consider like what's really out of place here. Is it your interest or is it the way that we've been taught to shame these things and suppress these things that are incredibly natural and normal? To adorn yourself, to costume yourself in different ways, such a beautiful part of the human experience in so many regards. Why would that not apply to our sexuality? To
Yeah.
want novelty, to want to explore new things, that speaks to our desire for growth, for evolution. And again, what could be more natural than that? We're hardwired for it.
Yes.
So, that being said, then it comes to the like, okay, what do you do with this in a partnership? What do you do with this if you want to have a conversation with your partner about spicing things up a bit? A lot of us are afraid to both reveal desire because we are fearing the other person's judgment, but also we're afraid that they will think we are criticizing them, that we are somehow displeased. And so that tends to be a big barrier to initiating these conversations for many. So, what I want to offer here is that anytime you're going to have this quality of conversation, first acknowledge the vulnerability of it, and then start from a frame of why this actually is important to you in relationship to the other person. So, if it's me sitting across from my partner, I might say something like, "Hey, babe, are you first you want to check in, you want their buy-in, consent, are you up for a little chat about what's going on in our intimate life? Maybe not right now, maybe we need to schedule that for Tuesday night." Okay, like make sure they're available to hear you is what I'm trying to emphasize here. But once that moment arises, I might say something like, "Hey babe, I love being intimate with you. It's really one of the most satisfying aspects of our relationship. It means so much to me. I want to keep growing and keep both feeling really turned on and learning new things about ourselves together." And something that I feel curious about and also a little shy to say is I've been wondering about fill in the blank. I'm wondering about us going to a sex toy shop together and maybe looking at some things. I'm wondering about if I were to wear, such and such costume or lingerie, like that would help me feel really like connected to a particular aspect of my eroticism. That would help me feel powerful. That would help me feel soft. That would help me feel like whatever it is. So then you want to make it about like what it would do for you and the fact that you want to share it with them. So that helps to dislike to completely take away the we're criticizing them because we're not saying anything's wrong. We're saying, here's how I want to grow and I want to do it with you.
Yes.
That's not a bad thing. That's a gift. That's a beautiful thing. And I don't know, personally, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with anybody who didn't want to grow with me, sexually or otherwise. Growth is a really high value that I hold. And I'm not alone in that. I know from all I've supported countless clients at this point in time. Many of us are deeply committed to our growth. It
Yeah.
might sometimes feel like we're in isolation, but most of us are really like excited to learn new things about ourselves, to have a more satisfying intimate life. So you're really extending a gift to your partner by opening up a conversation like this with them. And again, acknowledge, yeah, ooh, I feel a little shy about this one. Ooh, I feel a little awkward. I may not be saying this perfectly. Okay, thanks for being human. Awesome. Two thumbs up. You're doing great.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think there are just ways to come at these conversations where we can really take away all the stress of it, the shame of it, and normalize that this is a beautiful, natural aspect of our intimate lives that we get to share with whom we choose.
we do. And I love the structure. And like this is how I know that you are a coach, because I love the structure that you provided there in terms of the conversation as well. Firstly,
Yeah.
the timing of it, as you said, ensure it's the right time, the energy feels good between what you're about to share, and then also the praise, the appreciation for what is working. Now, people love to be edified, they love to be acknowledged. And so when you go in there, it doesn't feel like a criticism. It feels like, no, this is working really well. I love what you do. Are you open? And then you can go into, I wonder, that exploration. I think if we approach love intimacy with a more curiosity mindset
Oh,
rather than
yes.
it being fixed. And I don't know about you, but I do feel like we've lost the curiosity, I suppose, when it comes to intimacy in our relationships. How do you feel about that?
I couldn't agree more. Curiosity and creativity are such gifts.
Yes.
When we assume, back when I said I realized there was so much I didn't know,
Yes.
that was me at 28, 29. Well, I still think that there's a ton that I didn't know I don't know. I am constantly learning. This is my professional focus.
Yeah.
It's a big part of my personal life. I'm still surprising myself here in my mid 40s, okay? And I really, really hope I'm going to still surprise
Oh,
myself in my mid 80s. May we all. So our curiosity and our creativity then, the baseline assumption is I don't know all there is to know. Fantastic. It doesn't have to follow a script. I wonder what story I'm going to write here tonight then. So when we come in with this openness to experiment, when we come in with a willingness to hold things lightly, which that's another piece for a lot of us that we take this all incredibly seriously. And don't get me wrong, it matters. Sex, intimacy, relationship, these are really, really important aspects of our life. So, by no means am I saying that you should not care, that this should not matter. What I am inviting is that you don't have to hold things so tightly and take it all so seriously, that there could be a quality of, oh, I wonder what would be like if we experiment with such and such. You like it? Great. Repeat. You don't like it? Okay, well, that's one we won't do again. Or
yes.
maybe it's, well, I like this aspect of it, but not that. I wonder if, and then you get to iterate and you get to keep being curious together about how you want to have your experience. And I want to also mention that I'm speaking about this in the context of a partner dynamic, but the same applies if you're exploring with yourself.
Yeah.
So this, your solo sex and the intimacy that you cultivate with yourself, whether that's overtly sexual or not, you get to bring the same curiosity to it. You get to bring the same creativity. Oh, I wonder what it would be like if fill in the blank, try something new, masturbate in a different position, use a different toy. If you never watch porn, porn. If you watch porn all the time, no porn. Read a sexy erotica poem. Like, just mix it up a little bit. You always have sex at night, have sex in the morning. Like you like to have it be, I don't know, like I'm getting far out here, but it's like if it's always warm and cozy, pull some ice cubes out of the freezer and see what it's like to do a little temperature play. Like
Yeah.
like so simple. None of this is complicated, but it's like what little variable can I adjust here so that I am staying curious, that I am inviting creativity in. I mean, really, it's just the possibilities are endless.
Yep. And also the neurological side behind that too, because we know that when we do something different, we fire new neurons. So when we are doing that, we're
Yes.
able to, and the growth behind that. So switch from the bedroom to the kitchen, whatever that may be, just, it allows the relationship to grow and to not be
Yeah.
stagnant. And I believe that a lot of why we aren't curious as well is just because of the interesting contrast between sex stigma and shame behind it, and also sex sells. Because one minute is like
Yeah.
sex sells, and then there's the stigma and the shame that comes, and it's such a
Ah.
contrast that then how do we authentically express ourselves when we've been told, when pulled in opposite directions? What's happening?
And you've just teed me back up for why I talk about eroticism. So, yes, we have a lot of deeply conflicting, convoluted messaging around sex. It becomes a really complicated subject for many of us because there's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of feeling about it all. Yes, I should be sexual. No, I
Yeah.
shouldn't be sexual. Be sexual to this extent, in this context, with this person, in this way. And that is a constant chorus in our minds much of the time. So we understandably then can get very far away from sex as play, sex as joy, sex as a place that a place, a practice, if you will. I'm going to use the word practice here, a practice for knowing yourself more. And whether we're talking about partnered sex or solo sex, that remains true. People have asked me, I've had some wonderful lovers and partners in my life, and I'm like, if you lined them all up and tried to find a common thread, I'd be like, good luck with that. Every gender, every race, every like age range. I mean, like really, it would be
Yeah.
quite a lineup. Here's what every single relationship of mine has had in common. It has taught me something about myself. I have claimed more of an understanding of who I am, what I enjoy, how I do relationship, what sex can be like for me. This list goes on and on and on. I learn all of that in relationship. So do this for you, darling listener. Like this gets to be about you, whether or not you're having partnered sex. I really just want you to consider like how this could become something that is joyful and playful and expansive and affirms your sense of self. Many of us walk around with a story, particularly this holds true. A lot of us who might be in our middle years and beyond, who've been in long-term relationships where intimacy has not always felt easy. And so the story goes something like, I don't like sex. And I would argue that chances are good you don't like the sex you've been having. Fair. So, do you want to then throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, for lack of a better euphemism there? Or do you want to consider maybe there's sex I would like having? Maybe there's intimacy I would enjoy experiencing. Maybe if I listen to this Darshana chick who's talking about eroticism as something more expansive, it might have something to offer me. Just maybe, it's a possibility.
Love. Yeah, I love the exploration, the curiosity, as we said there. And the fact is that just because it didn't work for you that way doesn't mean that something else wouldn't work for you. Now, you've spoken about your growth and your learning through relationships. As part of my show, I do love to ask my guests, what is your personal definition of love in the romantic sense?
Oh, okay, in the romantic sense, because I'm about to say my quick answer is love is who we actually are, you
Yes,
know.
the essence of it all.
The essence of it all. I do. I even have that tattooed on my forearm.
Oh,
Um, love in a romantic context. I think love in a romantic context has a lot to do with our ability to be compassionate witnesses to both ourself and one another, to meet ourselves in that presence that I spoke of earlier, to be present, me with you. And compassion meaning I'm setting my judgment aside. I'm leading with kindness. I'm assuming positive intent here. And I get to witness like who are you? Who am I? Who are we together in this moment? And what is the kindest, most heart-centered, most life-affirming way that we can be in relationship right now? Now, those are a lot of really beautiful words, and it really is vast. I don't know that answer. If right here, right now, even though we are not in a romantic context, like what would be the kindest, most loving, most life-affirming way for us to relate? Okay, let's get curious about that. There comes that curiosity again.
yeah.
So to me, that's what love is about.
Oh, I love that. It's the observer. Wait, just observing. I mean, and we can learn so much, can't we? Obviously from experiencing it, but also from the observation as being a compassionate witness. What a wonderful, wonderful share. Darshana, you have shared so much with us today, and I'm so excited for the listeners in terms of how they can really lean into their erotic wholeness and see that as okay and safe to do. Because in the work that I do as a coach, I'm all about safety and having that space where you feel safe to explore by yourself, solo exploration, and also with your partner. And I think that you created an environment and atmosphere today that really helps people to lean into that experience, putting aside any shame. And not to say that we're not acknowledging the any shame that might come up or any awkwardness or any discomfort, but equally being able to lean into that experience, knowing it's okay to expand, to reclaim your agency, to embody it all. Absolutely love it. The intertwining of sexuality and spirituality, the whole essence of it. So thank you so much for this wonderful
Pleasure,
conversation.
truly.
Yeah. As a parting tradition as well, I also like to ask my guests to leave our audience with one key takeaway to help them along their journey of love, well-being, and relationships. And I would love for you to just share a takeaway with us.
Hmm. Regardless of your relationship status, regardless of what you desire and aspire to, the intimacy that you cultivate with yourself is the constant. And so what I want to leave you with is really recognizing how deeply important it is to get to know yourself well. And that includes in a sexual context, but it's really everything about yourself. So we we often look to another person, and I just got done saying, like, I learned a lot about myself in relationship with others. That's not wrong, that's not bad. We are hardwired for this as very social creatures. What's also true is that we have a responsibility and an opportunity to cultivate intimacy with our own selves intentionally, and all of your other relationships will benefit from that because that's the only way that you get to show up as authentically as possible. So what I leave you with is a seed of inspiration, a gentle nudge to cultivate more self-intimacy, to prioritize that, to really see how essential that is to thriving in the wider ecosystem of your life and relationships. Self-intimacy is at the center of it all always, because you do take yourself with you wherever you go. You are your forever partner. Act like it.
Oh, what a lovely takeaway. Thank you so much, Darshana. Now, where can the audience reach out to you, contact you, find out more about what you do?
Yeah, well, my website is a wonderful place to find all the things, and it's my name, darshanaavila.com. The way that I work with clients, I'm very, very fortunate that I have people come from all over the world, from different parts of the US where I am, to do multi-day immersions with me in this journey to erotic wholeness. So if you're intrigued, please know that geography is not a barrier. There is a deep transformational journey. And if geography is a barrier, then I have some self-paced courses. I have an online community called Galgasm that's got a library full of resources in it. I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube. So you can check me out in many places. What website's a good place to start?
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I will drop all of Darshana's details into the show notes so that you can easily reach out to her and click on those links because she does fantastic transformational work. And I really do hope that people will lean into more of this so that we can really be our authentic selves. So thank you once again, Darshana. It's been a pleasure having a conversation with you.
Likewise, so good.
Thank you. And for everybody who has listened to this wonderful episode, I want to thank you for your time, for your attention, and for your energy. And until the next episode, take great care of yourselves and others too.